All right, everybody, it is showtime. How's it going? Chuck Holton here. I'm in Erbil, Iraq, at the Free Burma Ranger Safe House today, and there's a lot going on. The question I'm asking today is, did the United States lose the long war? You know, we called it the long war. We called it the global war on terror. We called it all sorts of things. The International Security Assistance Force, ISAF. We called it Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, et cetera, et cetera. GWAT, Global War on Terror. Have we lost? A new report that came out says that Al-Qaeda, who I'm going to refer to as AQ from now on so that we don't get demonetized on YouTube, has grown from about 500 fighters, they believe, back in 2001 when 9/11 happened, to at least 25,000 people are in 70 different countries today. So whatever we've been doing has not reduced the number of terrorists in the world, it's increased it. But it might not be as bad as all that. And so we're going to talk about that as we go along here. I'm going to fill you in on kind of, the history of this, and then look at what may happen if the United States attacks Iran and how that could affect the greater terrorism community across the globe. So we're going to talk about that. Now, obviously, President Trump did not attack Iran last night. Tonight, if you watch yesterday's live, tonight might be his last chance to do so before Ramadan starts, because again, this thing, they're going to need a week to 10 days to prosecute this conflict. And if they do it over Ramadan, it's going to be a political loss for the president, because it's going to look like an attack on Islam rather than an attack on Iran. But there is this quote from George Patton that I think is important for us to think about today. And that is, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. So there are reports out right now that President Trump has decided to delay the attack because they don't believe we have enough anti-missile missiles in our Patriot missile batteries, THAAD missile batteries, etc., to adequately protect our troops in the region and infrastructure that belongs to our allies like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is very concerned about this. If we attack Iran, Iran is basically threatening to attack everybody in the region. Now, they threatened that last time, back in June. They said, if there's an attack on Iran, we will attack everybody around us who has helped them. And that was a specific threat to Jordan and Iraq. Looked like my internet just died for a second. Let's see here. Oh, I see what the problem is. I'm on the Starlink. So let me know if you can see and hear me. I can change to another internet backbone if I need to. But also do me a favor and post in the chat where you're watching from so we can see where everybody's coming in from. That's always fun. And it definitely helps the algorithm too. I know I say that every time, but it's true. It does help the algorithm. So Yeah, I think I'm going to switch over to the other internet service because I think this one is not as good. So let's give me just a second. If I drop out, I'll be right back. Okay, I think we might be back on now. Sorry about that. Internet's not working as planned, but we're doing the best we can here. Okay, so we're back on now. Before we get into all of that I'm talking about, let's first talk a little bit about the chaos that is driving the market crazy. That chaos has led to a real sell-off in the last few days of technology stocks and cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin's down 30% or something, I mean, it's crazy. And, there was a big sell-off in gold and silver too, but it's started to come right back. JP Morgan just increased their target price for gold for 2026 to like $6,300 an ounce. They had been saying it would hit $5,000 an ounce by the end of 2026, and it hit 5,000 in January. Now they're saying it'll hit 6,300. So it's not too late. Like I said, when the market went down and gold dropped a few days ago, I told you gold is on sale. So is silver. It's on sale, and you should be buying it if you have any money to invest. And if you have a retirement fund, it's a good idea to put some of that into gold and silver just as a hedge against the stock market. The best place to do that is Preserve Gold. Our sponsor here will help you establish a precious metals IRA, take a portion of your savings and put it into that. You get the same tax benefits as other IRAs or 401ks, and you can do it with physical gold and silver, and Preserve Gold will show you how to do it. So if you just text the word Chuck to 50505, you can get a free wealth protection guide, or go to preservegold.com/hotzone, or call them on the phone and tell them I sent you. They're real nice people, and they will walk you through the whole process and help you figure out whether or not investing in gold is right for you. There's the phone number right there on the screen, 877-444-0929. What was that? I didn't quite catch it. So there we go. There's the number. All right. So thank you to Preserve Gold for sponsoring today's podcast. Let's move on now. A report just came out in the Telegraph, and it's based on reports from various intel agencies like MI6 and the CIA, etc., saying that AQ in Afghanistan on 9/11. Today, they boast a minimum of 25,000. That's probably a gross understatement. If you listen to Sarah Adams, who is a admitted expert on the topic, she's a former CIA targeter and follows this stuff very closely. She claims that AQ alone has 100,000 troops in Afghanistan alone, just Afghanistan. Is that true? Can't corroborate it. But there was just another report that came out that I mentioned before from the former intelligence chief of Iraq saying that the black pajama people, I'm sorry I have to use these kind of euphemisms and stuff because YouTube is stupid and will, demonetize my video if I use the wrong word. But that's the way it is. It's all algorithm driven. And so they've got a computer that's listening to every word I say. And if the computer decides that I might be a terrorist, then it'll just demonetize and sort of hide the video so nobody sees it. But I'm talking about these people here. Okay, so you know who I'm talking about. The is people that we were hoping we had made into was people, but they are still around. And the report that came out the other day said that they have grown from about 2,000 or 3,000 fighters in Syria alone to now over 10,000 fighters in Syria alone. Now, that has not been corroborated either. Having just spent a week in Syria, I can tell you that people in Syria believe that those numbers are low. They think there are actually a lot more people who align themselves with the Black Pajama Boys because they're kind of the cool kids on the block. As I said yesterday, that in Arab culture, they like to go with the strong horse. So if Al-Jilani and his forces look like they're the strong horse, people are going to side with them. But as soon as it looks like there's another player on the playing field that is stronger, then a lot of people will just give up their allegiance to Al-Jilani. They'll go over and join the Black Pajama guys once again. They don't have any qualms about doing that, which, they don't really have any guiding principles. A lot of, you understand, you get this sense when you go to Syria. Syria is essentially a third world country. Maybe not true third world because there is electricity and city services and running water and things like that. But it's pretty close. And it's been essentially a failed state for 10, 15 years. But you get the sense talking to people there that these people have not had the benefit of Western education, internet access, things like that would allow them to get a wider perspective on the world. Many of them have literally spent their lives just following the back end of a bunch of goats around out in the desert. So when the friendly neighborhood Black Pajama Boy comes waltzing into town and says, hey, you 16, 17-year-old boys, we got something cool for you to do. We're going to give you a gun. We're going to let you do some awesome stuff. They're like, yeah, beats following a goat around, and off they go. Later on, when they're, a little more battle hardened, when somebody else says, hey, we'll pay you more money than that guy does, then they go, oh, sure. And they just drop him like a hot potato, whatever organization they belonged to before, and they join a different organization. And so we've seen these guys, it's the same group of people jumping back and forth from different organizations to organizations, but they're all Salafist, extremist Muslim organizations. And so for our purposes, it really doesn't matter what they call themselves. Is that your phone? It really doesn't matter what they call themselves. It really doesn't matter if they're AQ or the Black Pajama Boys or, whatever, tribal militias or anything. They're all our enemy, and they hate the Western way of life. They hate education. They hate joy. They're a death cult. Really, I mean, I say they hate joy. They literally prohibit their people from listening to music or dancing or smoking or, all the pleasures of life that you could find are pretty much haram to these people. And there are competing ideologies, these people end up killing each other more than they kill anybody else. As a matter of fact, this is one thing I really want to harp on a little bit today. If we go into Iran, Iran is a Shia country that doesn't like the Sunnis. The Shias and the Sunnis don't like each other. They both consider the other to be infidels or apostates. So if we take out the Shia center of gravity, it could easily lead to a vacuum of power that allows the Sunni extremists to fill that gap and to come in and to grow exponentially across the region. That wouldn't be good for us either. And if we learned anything over 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, it's that we're not going to kill our way out of this problem. We're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. We're not even going to be able to build our way out of this problem, because we tried that for 20 years and spent trillions of dollars and thousands of American lives, lots of blood and treasure, and left it to the same people that we took it from in 2001. Left in great defeat. And that only strengthened the resolve of the terrorist groups that we've been fighting. So there is obviously plenty of blame to go around. And I think we have to have a little grace for ourselves, because if you look at the counterterrorism industry, if you want to call it that, that existed before 9/11, that industry really treated terrorism as a law enforcement problem. So when terrorists tried to blow up the World Trade Center back in, what was that, 93 or 98, or something like that, before 2001, it was treated as a law enforcement problem. Well, law enforcement took care of that. When 9/11 happened, we transitioned very quickly and made it a military problem. And we went to war. We have been evolving our CT strategy ever since. And we've made some big mistakes along the way, without a doubt. Taking out Saddam Hussein and then disbanding the Ba'ath Party in Iraq was turned out to be a really bad idea, because it created this massive power vacuum. And into that vacuum stepped Al-Qaeda, which then eventually led to the rise of the Black Pajama Boys. And even though they don't like each other now, AQ and the Black Pajama guys don't like each other now, they're from the same source. And so with that in mind, the United States probably should have left the Ba'ath Party in power, so that there was some, regimentation and rule of law in Iraq, instead of turning Iraq into the Wild West and then trying to tame it ourselves with American boys and girls over there in up-armored Humvees. But hindsight is always 20/20. And in hindsight, it probably would have been better if we had maybe bombed Iraq, maybe tried to do what we could to take out Saddam Hussein and then leave. Like I keep saying, it would be better for us to say, we have the most lethal military in the world, and we're going to make use of it if you threaten us to reboot your country. We're just going to come in, we're going to wipe out your leadership, and then we're going to leave. And we can do that as many times as you want until you stop being a threat to us. But we're not going to stay there and try to rebuild your country. We're not going to try to make you into a Jeffersonian democracy under the Westphalian order. No, we're just going to get rid of the threat and then leave and let you decide what you want to do next. I think that would have been a better strategy. Would have been a better strategy in Afghanistan as well, by the way. We actually toppled the Taliban regime in a matter of weeks after we put troops on the ground in Afghanistan. Once that happened, we could have put the Northern Alliance in charge, brought in, somebody and propped him up as the leader of Afghanistan, which is essentially what we did. And then we could have just left. We didn't need to stay there and try to rebuild that country. I mean, we poured billions and billions of dollars into Afghanistan, trying to turn them into a modern state when they've been around for 6,000 years and they haven't even figured out paved roads, toilets, light switches, beds yet. None of that stuff. So they're backwards 7th century savages with AK-47s. It's like fighting your way through the Old Testament. So we weren't going to make them into a modern state. It just wasn't going to happen. We stayed there for 20 years, and we did some good while we were there. I reported on a lot of it. I've got 12 trips to Afghanistan during the war. And I reported on we were opening schools. We were teaching people to read. We were elevating the plight of women. A lot of the young people that grew up for 20 years with American troops around started to emulate the troops and even want to look like them and want to shape their hats like them and things like that. That's all good things. Go to the gym and sort of, showed them a different way. But the Taliban really valued strategic patience. And they said many times during the war, you Americans have all the watches, but we have all the time. And then what they're saying is, we're just going to wait you out. We're not going to confront you head on because we would lose, and we know that. And so we're just going to keep making it more expensive for you by an insurgency, killing your guys wherever we can, and then running away. And then when you get sick of it and the people of America can't stand to see one more body bag come back home, then you'll pull out and we will come back in and pick up where we left off. And that's exactly what they did. It's exactly what happened. Now, we were saying in 2009, we were saying, look, we're not going to kill our way out of this problem. But we didn't really know what else to do differently. So we tried various things. We tried consolidating power in population centers and sort of leaving the countryside to its own devices. We tried the opposite of that. We tried training Afghan troops to do our fighting for us. Didn't work out so well because when we got there, only about 12% of them were even literate. And so we had to institute reading programs to teach them to read. And the problem with that program, which we were spending about $1 billion a week on, if I remember right, is that the government of Afghanistan would only allow the United States to train their guys to read if the only thing that we let them read was the Quran. There's no Dick and Jane, no C-Spot Run, none of that. They could only read the Quran. So many of those Afghans that we trained to read got to read the Quran for the first time in their lives. They had been nominally Muslim before that, didn't really know much about it because, again, their whole life was following the back end of a herd of goats. But once they learned to read and then read the Quran, many of them were like, oh, wait a minute. These Americans are infidels and we're supposed to be killing them. And so that led to this enormous problem we had toward the end of our time in Afghanistan with the green on blue attacks, where Afghans that we had trained and lived with and fed and taken care of and been friends with for years would all of a sudden turn on us and murder American troops on their bases. Got to the point where our troops literally had to carry pistols into the shower with them. I saw that with my own eyes. Carrying a pistol in the shower just in case somebody came in and started shooting. But, a lot of times it wouldn't have even helped because The green on blue attack took the form of somebody just tossing a grenade into the latrine and leaving it at that. Suffice it to say, all of our efforts in Afghanistan not only came to nothing, but they ended up leaving behind a much better equipped, much better trained force of extremist Muslim fighters. Now, again, according to Sarah Adams, there are 100,000 ISIS-K, that's a Khorasan, and AQ operatives in Afghanistan alone. And that doesn't include the Taliban, okay? Because the Taliban fights against those other guys. They're all extremists, but they fight against each other. I have a map here that shows the proliferation of the Islamic State, etc., around the globe, and like, you got to see this. This is craziness, right? Every one of these dots right here represents either an arrest that was made or an attack that happened that was linked to just the Black Pajama Boys since 2014 to the present. And you can see it's all across it. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of attacks and arrests in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, down into Australia. There have been attacks in Russia. You can click on any of these attacks and it'll tell you, what it was. And of course, over in the United States, mostly arrests, thank heaven, that they're the ones in blue. But there are some in red, as you can see here. Those are attacks. And again, this is only attacks that are attributed to somebody who's affiliated with the Black Pajama people. These guys have been not just hiding in their holes since 2001. They've been perfecting their information war across the globe to recruit and radicalize people who are already exasperated or fed up or upset at the US government or the Israelis or the They're finding fertile ground over here in the United States because there are so many people on college campuses that have been radicalized against the United States and Israel by the whole Gaza war. So I don't think that we're going to be able to expect this to go down anytime soon. Just not likely to happen. This map, somebody's asking, I'll just put the link to the map in the chat for you. I'll go put that down there. So you can go look at that map yourself. There you go. But the pretty disturbing stuff. The number of attacks, the number of extremists is on the rise. And I don't know if there's much that we could have done differently that would have changed that, because we're kind of in a darned if you do and darned if you don't situation here. If we do aggressively go after these people and try to kill them wherever we find them, we create martyrs. The remaining fighters then use those martyrs as recruiting tools to whip up sentiment against the United States, accuse us of imperialism, accuse us of terrorism, whatever. and create more people who want to fight us. But if we don't kill those people and we just leave them alone, they are at war with us. So the lesser of two evils is to continue to have troops stationed in important places around the globe, like Syria, northern Iraq, Israel, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, whatever, and to actively and aggressively hunt these people and do bad things to them whenever we get a chance. Try to make their tummies hurt as much as possible. We're not going to make them hate us anymore, but it will continue to allow them to recruit. So, I mean, there might be a happy medium there where we don't have a huge overseas footprint, but we still are actively hunting and dropping warheads on foreheads from 30,000 feet, or, you know, a drone strikes or airstrikes or things like that. Kind of like what Israel has done very effectively so far in their 7-front war that they're fighting. Now, I want to point out something that has been floating around social media today. It's a video of our current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, back in 2015 when he was a senator for Florida, giving a speech just after the vote on the JCPOA. That's the Iran nuclear deal that the Obama administration rammed through, which gave huge piles of cash to Iran. And Marco Rubio absolutely nailed it, saying, here is what is going to happen now that we have decided to give all this money to Iran and lift the sanctions on them with this JCPOA. And he was right on every count. Take a listen.
Brief. I know the senator from Tennessee would like to close on this matter. I think everything that needs to be said about the details of this deal have already been said. I do want to be recorded for history's purposes before I know what is going to happen in regards to this if it goes through. Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships, continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune, that we will no longer be able to strike their nuclear program because the price of doing so will be too high. This is not just a work of imagination. It exists in the world today. It's called North Korea, where a lunatic possesses dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already reach the United States. And we cannot do anything about it. An attack on North Korea today would result in an attack on Tokyo, or Seoul, or Guam, or Hawaii, or California. And so the world must now live with a lunatic in possession of nuclear weapons. And this is the goal Iran has as well, to reach a point where they become immune to any sort of credible military threat because the price of a military strike would be too high. And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction. Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit. And perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead. And we are making a terrible mistake. And I fear that a passage of this deal will make it even harder for us to prevent it. And I hope that there is still time to change our minds, but here's the good news. Iran may have a supreme leader, but America does not. In this nation, we have a republic. And soon we will have new leaders, perhaps in this chamber, but also in the executive branch. And I pray that on their first day in office, they will reverse this deal and reimpose the sanctions and back them up with a credible threat of military force, or history will condemn us.
So there you go. Marco Rubio is so good. Did you notice in that 3.5-minute clip, he did not refer to his notes? He was not looking at a teleprompter. All of that was off the cuff. He's an incredibly good speaker. He's very intelligent, understands foreign policy and what needs to happen. Unfortunately, he is being sidelined in the White House today in favor of people like Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, who today went and met with leaders from Iran, and they did that in Oman, and had meetings to try to negotiate some sort of deal where the Iranians would give up their nuclear ambitions, would give up their enriched uranium, and would stop killing their own people. To which Iran, according to the Washington Post, flatly refused all of that. But there's a picture here of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and that's Brad Cooper there next to Jared Kushner. That's the general that's in charge of the region where Iran sits. And I believe he was there to just sort of remind the Iranians that the United States is ready to take military action. But the thing that concerns me about this picture, I wish I could zoom it in for you, is the look on Steve Witkoff's face. He's got a big Cheshire cat grin on his face. And so does the Iranian guy as well. They're yucking it up. They're having a great time in there. So do you think these negotiations are profitable? I don't. Do you think it's a good idea for us to try to continue to negotiate with Iran? What are we going to come up with? Something that looks exactly like the JCPOA the Marco Rubio was talking about, where they will use any leverage that you give them, any relief and sanctions, any additional money, any ways for them to make more money, any room at all. They will use that to increase the cost of the United States being in the region, to target for death our people and Israel. So what in the world did we hope to accomplish by continuing these sham negotiations? As a matter of fact, there was an IRGC general who came out, and I had it here, but I lost it when the internet went out. And he put out a statement saying, the United States has returned to the negotiating table in humiliation and defeat. They are obviously weak, and Iran is strong, and we will, if they attack us, essentially, we will attack all of our neighbors. We're going to make sure that this turns into a regional war. That is how they see the United States when we go back to the negotiating table with these jokers. They have no intention whatsoever of giving up their nuclear ambitions, of stepping down. I mean, that's really what we need, is for the regime to fall. But as Marco Rubio pointed out, the Shia apocalyptic vision is that the Mahdi, that is the hidden imam, will come kind of a Christ-like figure to save the world from oppression and, war and things like that, which makes you think like the Iranian regime is the one oppressing their own people. So is the Mahdi going to come and stop the regime from doing what it's doing? That's above my pay grade, but they believe that the Mahdi will come and will set all things right. And so it's their job to instigate the final conflict between Islam and the West. And when the West is conquered, then the Mahdi can show up. That's their ideology in a nutshell. Now, the Sunnis have a different ideology, and their ideology centers more around the reimposition of the global caliphate, bringing all areas of the globe under the control of Islam, into submission to Islam. Well, that's not going to happen, but they certainly are growing. Part of the reason that we've seen the numbers of terrorists that belong to these various organizations continue to grow is because they are dramatically outbreeding us in Europe, United States to some extent. In some places like the UK, your average Muslim family has 7 kids. The average British family, ethnically British, be lucky if they have 1. So it was pointed out when I was a stockbroker, so that was a good 20 years ago, there were articles coming out that said Europe will be a Muslim nation. It'll be predominantly Muslim in 25 years. Well, here we are 20 years down the road, and we're very close to that. We're getting closer to that every day. If you've been to Western Europe lately, you know what I mean. I just talked to somebody from Iraq here that got a chance to go to Italy recently, and they said it's unbelievable. Like everybody you see is North African or Middle Eastern. There aren't any Italians left in Italy because the Italians are not breeding, but the migrants are. So this is a huge problem. But that also, like I say, that helps explain why we see so many more people joining these terror organizations, because they're just having lots and lots of kids. These organizations are recruiting children as young as 11. Saw a video today of a kid that couldn't have been much older than that, shooting an AK-47 over a berm at the Kurds in Syria. So that's nice, classy. Thank you very much. And the bottom line is the United States must continue to evolve our strategy. And I don't want to delve into the realm of conspiracy theory here, but I'll just end with this. As a Bible-believing Christian, when I look at what's happening around the globe, at the growth of these terror groups, and to the point where, if you go to the beach, if you go to church, if you send your kid to school, et cetera, nightclubs, they're all targets now for jihadi-inspired violence around the globe. Doesn't matter where you go. Resorts have been attacked, and I mean, just about any place. Movie theaters, bike paths have been attacked, shopping districts, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the Bourbon Street in New Orleans, they've all been the subject of attacks that are tied to the Islamic State. And so with that in mind, it's not going to get any better. It's likely to continue to get worse. And that could easily lead to the rise of what we see in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, I believe, where it talks about the mark of the beast, the one world government. It describes a very totalitarian world government that's essentially a surveillance state where you can't buy or sell without having the mark on your right hand or your forehead. And if you think about like, well, how could we get to a point where you can't buy or sell without getting a mark and, things like that? Well, if we see the continued increase of surveillance state tactics across the globe, not just in terms of surveillance cameras, but in terms of economic surveillance. PayPal has to report everything to the IRS now, things like that, Venmo, whatever. It's like it's almost impossible for you to move money in large quantities. We've struggled with that as we've been trying to do humanitarian work around the globe. We had $150,000 here in Iraq that was supposed to go to Syria, and they just said, no, we're going to keep this because that's just too much money. You can't be traveling with that much money. It's actually legally you can as long as you declare it, but with a lot of prayer we were able to get the money anyway. But just trying to transfer money around the globe is getting harder and harder by the day. It's gotten to the point where I have a hard time even paying Nathan because he lives in Armenia, and the Armenian banks won't take wire transfers anymore from the United States. So all that to say that the continued increase in the threat of various terror groups around the globe will only exacerbate the drive toward additional surveillance, additional controls, and those controls really affect law-abiding people more than they affect criminals, because criminals don't follow the rules anyway. But this is the government, our world governments trying to figure out a way to put a stop to these attacks. Now, personally, I wrote a book about this, and I predicted that we'd be in a situation like this if President Trump won. I'm glad that he won, but I warned you that the left is going to foment chaos for the entire 4 years of the Trump administration on purpose to try to make sure that you never want to vote for a Republican ever again because it's just too much chaos. You'll vote for a houseplant before you'll vote for a Republican again because you just want things to calm down. And I wrote a book called Death of Civilization that you can get on Amazon, or you can go to chuckholton.com. And if you become a supporter over there, you can get a free download of this book, PDF download. But Death of Civilization is a book that describes to you how to make your community more resilient against generalized loss of civility, localized disasters, terror attacks, and more. And it's all about relationships. It's not about storing up ammo and storing up food and all that stuff in your basement, although I don't have any problem with doing that. But it's about building relationships in your community. Okay, let's get over to our questions before it gets too late. First question, Chuck, what is your take on the over-reporting of the Nancy Guthrie investigation? I have not followed that, so I can't answer that. That's not in my wheelhouse, so I haven't followed it at all. I saw that the Nancy Guthrie was taken, but that's all I know about it. I haven't read even one article about it, so sorry. Next question, Mayor Michelle Wu is talking about the world should be allowed into America. How high do you think a terror attack is likely in Boston, Massachusetts for the foreseeable future? What do you think? Well, these terror groups are going to continue to use information warfare to try to radicalize and motivate and facilitate attacks against us. And as I said, there are far more people in America today who are ripe for the picking for them because they've been brainwashed at college into hating America and hating Israel. and seeing violence as the only means to get relief for their complaints. And so I think it is a matter of when and not if. But I don't know when. Next question. Who took out the secular Assad regime? That would be HTS and Ahmed al-Jilani. That happened in December of 2024. They kicked out Assad with the help of Turkey. Assad then went to Russia, and he's still there playing gin rummy with Putin, I guess. Next question. Which ideology is most evil, communism or Islam? They are both evil in different ways. One is a death cult. The other is a spectacularly, what would you say, dysfunctional political ideology. And they're both eminently evil. Now, if you just went by the numbers of deaths, communism has resulted in far more deaths over the last 200 years than Islam has. And Islam has accounted for a whole lot of deaths, but mostly very violent deaths. But socialism, Islam can't hold a candle to communism in terms of how deadly it is. I mean, tens of millions of people have died because of communism. So there's that. Okay, next question. Who funded Al-Qaeda and the Taliban to fight the Russians? Well, the United States did not fund the Taliban, and it wasn't the Taliban that fought the Russians. It was the Mujahideen, and the Mujahideen were against the Taliban. The Mujahideen came from the Panjshir province of Afghanistan. They are descendants of Alexander the Great. When you go to Panjshir, I've been there. When you go to Panjshir province, it's amazing because you see these people with like red hair and blue eyes, and their women's heads are uncovered. They're not, going around in the blue burqas like everywhere else in Afghanistan. And they were the ones who fought the Russians, and they were assisted by the United States. The Taliban came in later and took over most of Afghanistan after the Russians pulled out. So I know it's complicated, but yeah, it is easy to get that messed up. So the United States did not support the Taliban against the Russians. We supported the Mujahideen, completely different group of people, and they hate the Taliban. They've never allowed the Taliban into Panjshir province. Next question. Do you think Iran's leadership would welcome a conflict with the USA in the belief that it may provoke a wide-scale war and would hasten the return of the Mahdi? Well, that's what I was talking about. Their ideology says that they have to spark a conflict with the West in order to be the catalyst for the Mahdi returning. So in some sense, yes, the Iranian regime wants a war with the West, but it's not going to go like they think it is. It's going to be short and very, very damaging to Iran. Next question. Oh, did Nathan drop off? Thank you for that $5, $8, $5. Woo. It would be cheaper to pay to soldiers $200 USD a month to stay home in Syria and Iraq. Well, perhaps, but the problem with that is whenever we try to, do that, like in Afghanistan, where we were paying local guys to be soldiers, we just ended up with tens of thousands of phantom soldiers. It didn't actually exist. They were just on the books, and the money that we paid for them went right into the pockets of the corrupt generals in Afghanistan. So that would happen in Syria as well. No question. Next question. What say you to Jimmy Doris' theory that the Islamic State is a CIA and Israeli proxy? I think that's stupid. It doesn't comport with the facts on the ground. If you were to say that to, I've met members of the Islamic State when they gave themselves up. We guarded them for some time, a group of ISIS fighters that gave themselves up. And if you talk to them through an interpreter and said, are you guys a proxy of the Jews, the evil Jews, they would find that so incredibly offensive, their heads would probably explode. They are not in any way a proxy of the CIA and Mossad. That is just dumb. And it's the kind of conspiracy theory that, in the InfoWars crowd likes to parlay in, because it hints at some secret knowledge. Like, we know something that nobody else knows. We've uncovered it. Do we have any proof? No, but we know for a fact that this is happening, and I just don't subscribe to those kinds of conspiracy theories. If there's no proof, if I go there and investigate myself and talk to the people and listen to them and see it with my own eyes, and nothing I see comports with that story, then I'm not going to believe that story. As titillating as it might be, I'm not going to believe in it. And you shouldn't either. Next question. What evidence do we have that Mossad are our friends? Well, if we look at what we know the Mossad has done in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, during this war between Israel and their neighbors, everything that the Mossad has done has resulted in a lower threat signature to American troops in the region and to America in general. The Mossad has taken the lead in fighting their enemies in very creative ways. Operation Grim Reaper is one. They assisted when we decided to strike Iran with agents inside Iran, and made it much safer for American planes to fly in and bomb what we needed to bomb, because Mossad agents had taken out the air defense around those sites with drones from inside the country. Okay. So, I mean, if you need more proof than that, it's probably just a sign that you've been affected by that ridiculous propaganda that we talked about a minute ago. Next. What do you think of Tom Barrack and his agreement with Jelani? The Trump administration gave legitimacy to the leader of La Nusra. Yeah, I've talked about that a lot. Tom Barrack is, I don't think, on the side of America. Tom Barrack is a billionaire investor of Lebanese descent, Lebanese Arab origin. He is, you wonder when you hear him speak, is he the U.S. ambassador in Turkey, or is he the Turkish ambassador in the U.S.? Because it seems like he's talking on behalf of Turkey most of the time. He's under investigation for being an unregistered foreign agent for Qatar, having taken a bunch of money from them. But the fact that he has raised over $100 million for President Trump means that President Trump's not going to fire him. He's not going to go anywhere. And so he's going to keep pouring his poison into President Trump's ears about what's happening in Syria. And that results in throwing our friends, the Kurds, under the bus. Next question. Super sticker. Thank you for the $2.99. Appreciate that, Dexter Doodle. Next. That's a cute dog there. Why is the U.S. going along with Iran flexing diplomatically, like changing the negotiation venue and accepting indirect talks through Oman? It's a real good question. They're not going to come to anything. And all they're doing is they're drawing out this pain and suffering of the Iranian people, costing America more time and resources. If there is anybody in the Trump administration who actually believes that we can negotiate a settlement with the Iranian regime, we're worse off than I thought we were. That would be just now it could be that they're engaging in these talks to try to make Iran think we're not about to strike them tonight, and maybe we will strike them tonight. But if we do, make sure you come back here, and I will go live as soon as I find out. Okay, and we'll talk about it when it happens. Next question. Rubina, do you know if Leah's family need funeral fund support? Well, so they probably could use some fund support, Diane. Thank you for asking. Next question. Why isn't our Secretary of State conducting the negotiations? Thank you. Exactly. My question as well. Marco Rubio is much better qualified to conduct these negotiations, but for some reason they want to send Jared Kushner and Steve Witless over there to do it for him. Next question. And that's got to really bug Marco Rubio because he's not stupid. He knows that he would do a much better job at this than those guys. Who do you think is the most fitting next Republican president, Rubio or Vance? Rubio for sure over Vance. Vance gets off on being inflammatory, and I don't think that's a very presidential attitude to have. He really gets a rise out of making people mad and insulting people. And so while I think JD Vance is a very smart guy and he's been through a lot in his life and he's got a lot to emulate. I read his book, Hillbilly Elegy, but he has a real chip on his shoulder, especially for our allies. And he's really taken it upon himself to try to alienate our allies around the globe by insulting them at every turn. And I just don't think that makes good presidential material, unfortunately. If we're going to, a president is a diplomat, and so he should be diplomatic. If you're not diplomatic, there's one thing to, speak loudly, but as one president said, it would be better to speak softly and carry a big stick. So there's that. Next question. Do you think Kurdistan, part of Iran, are going to free themselves? And if Iran falls, would Turkey be next? And maybe finally Kurdistan be a country? I think that is wishful thinking. There are a lot of Kurds that wish that would happen. I wish that would happen, but I don't think it's likely to happen. Turkey is not close to collapse. It would take a lot to make Turkey collapse. And the Kurds do have 40 million people. So if half of those people were fighting age and took up arms, they could probably take their own country from wherever they wanted, because there's no army on planet Earth that has 20 million fighters. But there are about 39 different political factions in Kurdistan alone, and those people have a hard time getting along with each other long enough to band together and do something like that. So I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. Next question. If the Lord tarries, do you think defensive weapons will be developed that will make nuclear warfare no longer a threat? No, I think nuclear war will be a threat for the rest of our existence. And I think that at some point, a nuclear bomb will be detonated that will, it's foretold in Revelation. It's like a star fell on the earth kind of thing. So it's either a meteor impact or a nuclear bomb that goes off. And so, no, I don't think that nuclear is going to go away anytime soon. Next. Thank you for the $5 there. You cannot use an American debit card or credit card in Armenia. Use Venmo to transfer to his card. Well, you can use an American debit card in Armenia, but transferring money directly to an Armenian bank account used to be possible, but it is no longer. And so it makes it more complicated for us to try to get money to our kids over there. Next question. Chuck, what do you think about Israel's new base in Somaliland? Any plans to go there? I've been to Somaliland. It's not a garden spot. I know that's no big surprise. The premier of Somaliland says that he's going to come to Israel soon and meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. So they are deepening their cooperation. We should encourage Somaliland every way we can because it is a non-extremist state in the middle of a bunch of extremist states. So it'd be good to do. It'd be good if we could improve that. Next. Could you possibly help me get your book back? It was on my old phone, which has been stolen. Well, if you are a member over at Locals, you can download a PDF anytime you want. You just have to search for it, Death of Civilization, over at chuckholton.com. And if you are a supporter over there, you get not only downloads of my books, but you get early access to a bunch of videos. You get exclusive member videos. You get a phone call with me every month. You get all kinds of fun stuff. So and that is how we pay for this. So this is creator funding 101. If you like this kind of content, you want more of it, toss me a few bucks over at chuckholton.com and we will continue to bring you as best content as we can. Next. Why has the United States changed to negotiating with these guys instead of eliminating their threat? They wouldn't give us a chance. You're right. And that's because Tom Barack has given spectacularly bad advice to the president about this and has really damaged American credibility everywhere overseas, unfortunately. Next. Did a U.S. business try this to mine the rare earth minerals out of Afghanistan while we were there? No. We didn't mine any rare earth minerals out of Afghanistan with American companies. Chinese are trying to do it right now, but the Americans did not. And why we didn't, I don't know. Next question. Where do you think the next major conflict in the world will break out? Well, there are plenty of, we don't need new conflicts because old ones are, flaring up. It is very, very bad right now in Burma. It is very, very bad in Sudan. Ethiopia is no picnic. Lots of places across Africa. And so if I had to guess, I would say the next major conflict would be in Africa. The difference is Americans don't really care about what happens in Africa because those little brown people down there, that's kind of how we look at it. It's like, they're just a bunch of little brown people. Let them all kill each other. If it is not out of the realm of possibility that NATO will get involved directly in war with Russia. Don't think that war would last real long, but I think it's possible it could happen if Russia keeps pushing. So we'll see. Next question. What are the odds of living in the West, coordinating multiple terrorist strikes throughout the West if Iran is attacked? The odds are possible, maybe not likely, but definitely possible. And I think it will happen. There will be another major terrorist attack in the United States on U.S. soil at some point. It's a matter of when, not if. So we need to be prepared for that. Next question. Nate, your dad's answer for Leah was frozen. My answer for Leah, I think it was the question, did her parents need funds for funeral expenses? The answer is yes. They could use funds for funeral expenses. Froze up. Didn't hear your answer to question. Re help with dear little Leah's funeral expense. Will you please repeat the answer? Yeah. Okay. So there you go. Yes, they could use help with funeral expenses, and anything you want to send our way, we will transfer over to them and try to help them as much as we can. Thank you for being so kind and generous. I appreciate all of you. Is that okay? Could Vance have picked up the combativeness from working under Trump? I think he feels empowered to be that way because he works for Trump. But I think he picked up that combativeness from his grandmother. Actually, if you read his book, she was a very combative, very profane woman, and taught him a lot of good life lessons, but also taught him how to cuss, taught him how to, talk smack and, be abrasive. So I think that's where he actually picked it up. Next question. Problem is having Armenia bank account use debit. Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're having to do, but there are some tax implications to that. that cause problems. That's all I'll say about that. So, will there be sleeper cell attacks by Iran? Well, we already answered that question, so we'll move on. Next question. Do you still see the possibility of an attack on Iran around 60-70% tonight? Yes. I think there is a good chance that the attack, if it comes, will happen this weekend, or it will not happen for another month or so, till after Ramadan. Could be wrong. President Trump might not care about Ramadan, might not care about the political fallout of attacking during the Muslims' holiest month. But I think it's a good argument to say that the time is as right as it's going to get right now. And there will always be some reasoning why we shouldn't do it. The longer we wait, the better prepared Iran will be. The longer we wait, the more money it's going to cost the United States to keep those troops on a high state of readiness in the region. Parts of the world where our troops are not right now, because they're all concentrated in this area over here where I am now. Okay, so yeah. Next question. Do you think it's likely that the EOS around Elam are underground nuke tests? By my calculations, 4 is around the right yield. Roger, I think we would know if they were nuke tests. I think it would be public knowledge. Iran has always had lots of earthquakes. It sits on fault lines. So I think it's, again, straying a little bit into the realm of conspiracy theory to say, aha, they're testing nukes. Now, we would know that if they're testing nukes. So that's best I can do. Next question. Our last little comment here. My thoughts and prayers are with Leah and her family. Thank you very much, David. I really appreciate that. And we will definitely send your love and your prayers along to them as they continue to grieve. So God bless you. Thank you for watching the Hot Zone tonight. And please keep coming back. I'm going to be traveling home over the weekend. So I'll be back in West Virginia. I won't be home, but I'll be back in West Virginia on Monday, I guess, or late Sunday night. So be praying for me as I travel. And so I probably won't be on over the weekend, but we'll have a video for you tomorrow. So God bless you. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.